All right, guys, today we're going to do a little drive review of two Jeep Wranglers for 2024, both on 35 packages, but a huge price difference, and there's also a few technical differences, and I'm curious to see if this shows up in the drive ride review and the fuel economy loop. Let's do this. So I just did a full review comparison, kind of looking at the technology in the Willys package versus the base Rubicon versus Rubicon X at a separate video. This video is specifically going to be between the Rubicon X on 35s versus the Willys on 35s. You would think they'd be identical and drive the same. The shocks are a little bit different. Springs are a little bit different. Axles are slightly different. Transfer case is a little different. The gearing is different. 456s, 410s. We're gonna see if this shows up for performance and fuel economy in our little non-scientific fun driving loop we're gonna do today. First, we're gonna start with the Rubicon, right? Let's see what the bougie nice vehicle feels like. Reset our fuel economy, reset our loop. Let's do this. I want to thank Dick Scott Motor Mall in Fowlerville, Michigan for allowing me to do the review on these two Jeeps for you guys today. If you're interested in any of these Jeeps I'm going to be driving, I will put a link down below for the vehicles as well as the contact information to get a hold of someone on these vehicles. It's been about 12 years since I've driven a Jeep Wrangler, and I happened to buy from this dealer in the past, and it was a Rubicon. Back then, they were not as bougie and as action-packed as the new ones are. But they're also a lot less expensive. So I'll be curious to see how this thing compares today for fuel economy and a drive loop, and just kind of what the new Jeeps feel like. And what's interesting is this one's got all kinds of insulation, and it's got this Sunrider top. So I'll be real curious to see road noise, drive riding conditions, and just how this thing tracks going down the road. Notice an acceleration right around 2,200 RPMs. No issue getting up to speed. You can hear a little road noise, no surprise, we're in a Jeep, right? The ergos in this vehicle are great. They really are awesome. All the steering wheel controls, everything is really nicely positioned. Now let's get up to 70 and just kind of see what RPMs we're at, and just kind of also see what kind of fuel economy are we at 70 miles an hour on the highway. It's got good power considering I think I'm in like 8th gear. Road noise is actually not as bad as what I thought it would be. Road comfort is actually not that bad either. Road noise, it's there, but actually I think it's less than the Bronco. I love the look of that hood scoop. How freaking cool does that look? Just looks really tough. This thing feels absolutely tiny going down the road after driving my Cummins and my Raptor and our other vehicles. This thing is a little tiny SUV. So in a flat right now, I am at about 20 miles per gallon on a flat, and I'm gonna say at 2,050 RPMs at 70 miles an hour. Pickup surprisingly is not bad. You can tell it's got decent power, and I'm kind of surprised by that because I thought the 3.6 was gonna struggle a little bit more than what I would have expected. Like the steering wheel, looks nice, feels comfortable in the hands. So it's a pretty windy day today, so I expect the fuel economy numbers not to be great, but the thing I'm really happy to see is the driving mannerisms don't feel bad. I don't feel like I'm getting pushed all over. It's actually not a bad vehicle to drive. I'm really happy with this. You can tell the improvements they've made over the 12 years ago that we had our Rubicon. I think this thing, it rides and drives much better than my 2012 JK back in the day. And it's got more power with this new transmission. We're gonna get off the highway now and do kind of like the rural part of the loop. Curious to see how a little bit of cornering feels. So the brake feels pretty good, nice and linear. Steering is good. I'm not noticing the steering wheel feeling odd, like ripping the steering wheel out of your hands. Might sound crazy to mention that, but I have actually seen several solid axle vehicles do this in the past, unfortunately, right from the factory. And I'm glad to see this does not feel that way at all. A little bit more spirited acceleration here because I just kind of wanted to see what it sounds like, feels like, kind of getting it up around 3,000 RPMs. All the shifting in the gears and the transmission feels really good. Acceleration feels decent. And it's funny, I have just not been in a small SUV in quite a while. These are fun. They're a really fun vehicle. Makes me kind of want to own one again, to be honest with you. Summertime, having the top off, and then having a four-wheel drive vehicle for the winter. I get why these are so popular in the Midwest and states where you need off-road capability in the winter and summer and having a top down. So we're coming up to a slight incline right now, doing 60 miles an hour. I'm really curious to see if this is gonna hold RPM. Nope, already downshifted. Well, there's my answer right there. I'll be real curious if the 456 gears give any difference of improvement in that area versus these 410s. All right, we're gonna go through a flat section right now, doing about 58 miles an hour. Currently getting 24 miles per gallon. Sitting at about 1,750 RPMs, 58, 59 miles an hour. Be curious to see how this compares to the other one. All right, we're gonna pull back into Dick Scott. Really curious to see where our fuel economy ended up settling in at on the Rubicon on 35-inch tires. 18 miles per gallon over the 13-mile loop. Not too bad considering how windy it is today. I bet you there's 25 mile per hour winds. That's pretty good. All right, now we're gonna go do the exact same loop in the Willys. So first thing I noticed kind of jumping into the Willys with the air conditioning on and the other one as well, kind of noticed the steering wheel feels a little bit different. You got the yellow stitching, still comfortable, just a little different. Hard plastic above. Notice this does not have the 4 auto like the Rubicon Rubicon had. Another thing too, it's funny in the window sticker, look at the fuel economy. A lot better. So I'll be curious to see how this compares. We're gonna go into our fuel economy and reset our fuel economy. Let's go do the same loop now. I'll be curious to see if I notice a difference in acceleration from when you go from the 410 gears to the 456s. I mean, that's almost a 10% difference in your final drive ratio, not your final drive ratio, but a 10% difference in your gear ratio of your axles. So I'm barely into the throttle. It's revving a little bit more. Maybe that's part of a little bit higher gear ratio. Be curious when I go back and look at the film to see where the RPMs on the highway at 70 and 60 mile per hour kind of compare. First thing I notice, more road noise. Definitely more road noise in this one than the one we just drove, the Rubicon. So there must be more sound deadening and insulation in the Rubicon than the Willys. 70 mile per hour, cruise, right about 2,050 RPMs at the same speed as we were doing the other. Cruise control, currently getting 15 mile per gallon. I'll also be curious to see how that compares to the other Jeep. So the question is, how is the driving mannerisms of the Willys compared to the Rubicon X? Both on 35-inch tires, both the same wheelbase. I don't know if it's the perceived more wind noise, but it feels like this is not as tight on the road. I know that sounds crazy, but it could just be the road noise, feeling like you're hearing all the noise or hearing more noise in this than the Rubicon we just drove, that it maybe feels a little less. I don't know. It might be identical. Perceived drive handling, I don't really notice any difference. This thing feels pretty solid. I'm not noticing, surprisingly, the wind pushing me around at all. The wind noise, though, I do feel like it does have more wind noise. I just don't notice any difference in driving mannerisms. The seat feels good. The pedals feel good. The steering wheel feels good. Everything feels good. Nice and comfortable. Get off on the highway part of the loop now. Kind of compare how this does to the other one. Part of these tests these are real life. We did have a little bit longer of a traffic stop here. Traffic's backing up a little bit, unfortunately, but that is just part of doing these tests. It is real life. It could be just me being biased, but I do feel like this thing revs a little bit more. Maybe the 456 gears just kind of inherently a little more free revving than the 410s. It just seems to kind of rev up a little bit quicker. Maybe a little bit easier acceleration. I mean, it logically would make sense. Not that the other one was bad, it just, this feels a little bit more lively. So we're coming up to the exact same little incline, doing 60 miles an hour. We're at about 1,850 RPMs. Will it have to downshift? It sure did. It did still have to downshift, just like the Rubicon on 35s. But if you notice, the RPMs look to be a little bit lower, but I'll have to go back and kind of compare the footage. But 410s or 456s, both of them at sea level, had to still downshift to get up that slight incline. We're gonna pull back into Dick Scott and let's see where fuel economy ended up settling in at on the Extreme 35 package Wrangler. There we go, 17 miles per gallon. So I got 1 mile per gallon less, but let's also look at the time frame, 16 minutes, 56 seconds. I'm gonna compare that to the Rubicon in the footage. We had more idle time with this one as well. So 18 miles per gallon on the loop, 17 miles per gallon on the loop. 410 gears, 456 gears, $77,000, $60,000. Both Dana 44 axles front and rear, both on 35-inch beadlock capable wheels. Lockers in both rear, but a front locker in this one versus open locker in this one. Which would you prefer? That's really the question. Which is this customer each for? This is the Mac Daddy off-road monster. This is the thing that brought off-roading in Moab and everything. They made a full kitted out off-road Jeep with the Rubicon. But the new Willys with this 35 package offers a serious punch for like $17,000 less. One thing I wanted to add, it's kind of funny. People always ask me, why are Jeep Wranglers so expensive? Man, that's a decade-old question. I'd like to know the answer to it too, because they always bring a premium, and you think this is such a basic vehicle, not a lot of technology, but they're still super expensive. And the market brings it. The resale's always really great. I mean, the Wrangler is arguably one of the best resale vehicles ever. And this has been the case for like over 20 years. People love them. When you drive them, they're fun, they're capable. You can get them in parking spots, off-road, on-road. Every auto parts store carries parts for them. That's funny in itself. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Regardless, they're a really fun vehicle to drive, and every time I drive one, it kind of brings a little smile to my face. So I get why people love them. So which one of these awesome Jeeps would you go with? I'll leave the link down below if you're interested in either of these Jeeps. Dick Scott Motor Mall in Fowlerville, Michigan has both of these available. But that's the question. Which is the right Jeep for you? And that's what's cool. Jeep's got a lot of options for people. Hey, if you enjoy the video, feel free to like and subscribe. Have a good one.